Karen from Countyfairgrounds USA, countyfairgrounds.net. Welcome to today's podcast.
Do I have the one and only infamous Bruce Manners on the line with me?
Yes, you do.
Hi, Mr. Bruce. I guess you're a comedic juggler, and you're from Canada?
Originally, yes. I was born in Canada, but moved to the United States when I was about 2, and initially lived in Cleveland, and now I'm in Texas.
Okay, all right. Well, one just doesn't get born a comedian, so you want to give me a little bit of idea how that happened?
Sure. Let's see. I did a lot of theater in high school and college, and when I graduated from college, I wanted to continue to perform, and ultimately, I was at that point. I learned to juggle years before, and I saw a couple of acts on the Tonight Show. One of whom was Michael Davis, and one was Frank Olivier. Both did comedy juggling acts where they talked all the way through it, and I thought that's something I could do. So from seeing them and being influenced by what they were doing, and then I took improv classes. I've taken some stand-up comedy classes and competed in some stand-up comedy competitions way back in the day, and it's just taken off from there.
So I'm curious, you went to college. Obviously, you have a degree?
I have a degree as an electrical engineer.
That's different.
I tell a story in my show, actually, where I was pretty good at math and science in high school and went on to college and studied electrical engineering, graduated from college with electrical engineering, and literally, and it's a true story, I got a job with NASA. My job with NASA, I was ultimately responsible for the power system on the International Space Station, and that job went so well that now I'm a professional juggler.
That's good. That's really good. All right, people just don't get born a comedian. How did you sort of get into that?
As I said, I did juggling and was trying to figure out how to take that to a next level. I knew I was never going to be the greatest juggler. So I went down to what was Hilarity's Comedy Club in Cleveland, Ohio, and they had a Pro-Am night. And they did a stand-up comedy workshop ahead of that. So I took the workshop and entered their Pro-Am competition and won it 2 weeks in a row. So it was really, I like to think I'm naturally witty, but it was learning how you take that and then turn it into an act and turning it into a stand-up and a comedy show.
Okay, well, you had to have started someplace. What were some of your first gigs, and where were they, and what were they like?
So I did, like I said, I started out doing, I like most variety acts. I did lots of birthday parties and local festivals and performances. I think the very first thing I got paid for was a library show where I did a 30-minute juggling act, of which I'm sure 5 or 6 minutes of those were entertaining, but I tried to squeeze that 5 minutes into that 30-minute slot, and I think I managed to do it somehow. But so I did library shows and all the little local things that you normally do when you first get started out.
Okay. So what do you think your first big experience was?
Probably the first big thing I did. In the Cleveland area, they have a outdoor music venue called Blossom Music Center. And I was referred to from the comedy club. They had the touring production of Bugs on Broadway, which was the Warner Brothers Orchestra playing all of the old classic Bugs Bunny cartoon, all the classic music they used to play with, all that, the Ride of the Valkyrie and all the various really cool classic music that they would play. And then they showed the cartoons on a big screen above them. So they needed a half-an-hour act to come in ahead of that and sort of warm up the crowd for that. So I was brought in to do that. That was probably the biggest thing I did really early. Was doing local things and birthday parties and things like that, and then I got brought in to do that, and was probably about 15,000 people at that performance. So that was the first really big thing that I did. That was really exciting for me.
Okay, and somewhere along the line, I take it you got married, have kids?
I got married, no kids, just dogs. They're cheaper.
Yeah. Well, mostly.
Mostly, yeah. They don't take care of you end of life, however, unless you count them eating you potentially. So.
Okay. All right. Well, you've worked with a lot of famous acts, so I mean, you must have gotten to be fairly well known. So after that first couple of places that you did, how did you expand from there?
So I, in the Cleveland area, I really started out there doing the first 10 to 15 years of my juggling career was really around Cleveland, and I became really pretty well known there. So when they would have acts that came in through that didn't really have an obvious opening act, and it was also the late 80s and 90s where they were using more variety acts for that kind of thing. So I did a number of things there. I worked brought in for corporate events, and then also opening acts for things. So I did some opening acts specifically for Leon Redbone. That was a guy that was big back in the early late 80s. That was probably the first opening act I did. And then I did a lot of corporate things where I was working with me, and then the other acts were people like the Beach Boys, the Righteous Brothers, and it was all really through the local contacts that I had with the entertainment folk industry around the Cleveland area. So Belkin Productions, who also became part of Live Nation, they used to use me for a number of different things around town in Cleveland.
Okay, so you've been at this for quite a few years. Do I get a guess as to how many?
Probably, let's see, it's probably 35 years at this point. It was right after I got out of college when I really started to perform and trying to do professional quality things. So when I graduated in 1988, so yeah, I think I'm coming up on 35 years probably next summer. And
you've never worked at anything else?
Well, I did the NASA piece. I did work at NASA, and so that it was longer than just a few years. So, but principally, yep, I'm a professional entertainer, and doing really county fairs and festivals around Texas is really my specialty at this point.
So, what did NASA think of your comedian stuff?
I sort of hid it from them for a long time until one day I was on the front page of the Cleveland Plain Dealer, and it was really kind of obvious. And so I was in a meeting, and I was sitting in the back of the room. I was just a young upstart engineer sitting in the back of the room, and a director called me forward and leaned forward and said, "Bruce, do you juggle?" I said, "Yes, I do," and it got out from there. They were all very supportive and appreciated and enjoyed it, but I kept that separate for a long time.
Okay, all right. So, what have been some of your best experiences, do you think? I've enjoyed the big time things, but the best of things that are probably most rewarding are smaller festivals. Bus festivals like Dickens on Main in Boerne, Texas, Dickens on the Strand in Galveston, Texas. They both create really holiday friendly, family friendly kind of atmospheres, and just to interact with the people that are there. County fairs are another wonderful thing that I get to experience, where I'm bringing, exotic, unusual skills and jokes and comedy, and bringing it out to folks who, because they're in more of a rural area, who don't necessarily get to see all of the, some of the big shows don't necessarily go there. YouTube and everything else, of course, has expanded what everybody gets to see on a daily basis, but being able to present that live and in color right there with people and just interacting with people, that's really the highlight for me. Do you do your own booking?
I do, yes. I do work with a few agencies, but principally I do my own booking.
Okay. All right. So are there some places you would like to perform that you have not had the opportunity to?
I'd love to get back to the Ohio State Fair. I've been sort of centered down in Texas for the last few years, but I'd love to get back and perform at the Ohio State Fair, being a place that I grew up in Ohio, and that's really where I got my start, and I'd love to go back and work the Ohio State Fair sometime. And I think a lot of friends and a lot of people that I'd love to, that haven't seen me perform in 20-some years, that if I went back there, I think I'll have a chance to perform for a lot of people that I know and started out with.
I hate to ask this question, but I have to ask this. It's part of the game. So you must have had some bad experiences that made you reconsider what you were doing for a living. Do you want to talk about that?
I once set a fire alarm off at a hotel, juggling fire. That wasn't one of my better experiences. Thankfully, it breezed through and didn't create the lawsuits and things that it could have. And then, we all have days where you're caught out and you're working outside and the weather is terrible and you question your life choices. But
generally it's the people that bring me through all of those things. But certainly I was at a fair this past year where it went from beautiful weather to they had some kind of a micro storm that rolled through, and they ended up shutting the whole fair down. It rained as if you were standing in a shower hard for a good half an hour, and wind knocked things over, and they ended up having to shut the whole fair down. Those kind of moments will certainly get you questioning what you're doing, standing outside trying to juggle in pounding rain. But as I said, the interacting with the people are really what brings me back.
Okay. All right. Well, what does your wife think of all of this?
She enjoys it. She will certainly tout me to a lot of other folks. I think she would prefer I was around more, but I think she's generally always been supportive and tries to come up with ideas and new markets for me and ideas. So I think she enjoys it. The dogs have actually learned over time that if I'm standing in the living room and I pick up 3 balls, they get up and they leave the room. So they've realized that I have my toys and they have theirs, and balls are not one of theirs.
That's weird.
Yeah, it is. But when you juggle $55 silicone juggling balls, you don't really want the dogs playing with them.
Okay. All right. Well, how do people reach you if they have an interest?
BruceManners.com. You can also find me, Bruce Manners Comedy Juggler, on Facebook and all the Instagram kind of places. You'll generally search out for Bruce Manners. You look for me, you'll find me.
So, how many fairs you got booked for the upcoming year?
Well, we're in the season now where we're starting to make those bookings. A lot of the Texas Fair stuff gets started. The Texas Fair convention is actually in January, so I'm hoping to come out of that. I expect I'll have 5, 6, 7 fairs.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Bruce. I've enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you. You have a great day, and if there's something I can do, give me a holler.
I will do that. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.